You're watching America Trends. I am Mary Burt-Godwin, and I am very excited that our next guest is back here with us on America Trends. He's been here a few times, and I love what he has to say. First of all, I love his title, Chief Amazement Officer. Yes, what? Amazement Officer. He specializes in customer service experience, and he coaches business owners how to get the most out of their customer service representatives, how to have surveys, how to create an overall wonderful experience, and how to keep your customers coming back again and again, like we have him coming back again and again. Yeah. Shep Hyken, welcome back to America Trends.
I love coming back to America Trends. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I think it's really, really important. Everything that you have to say really has great tips for business owners of all types of businesses, right? And you do the speakers circuit, right?
I am. If you want to call it a circuit, you can. I'd love to find out the actual circuit, but that's exactly what I do. I travel around the world. I do speeches, keynote speeches on customer service and experience. Have trainers that travel with me sometimes that take it to a deeper level, and I write tons of articles and a number of books as well.
I was going to say 8 books under your belt.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah. And you also, I believe, coach people on how to become speakers, how to start their own circuit.
Well, I don't really coach them on how. I was president of the National Speakers Association, which is the largest association for the speaking industry, and I guess I've helped a few people, but I can give people direction on where to go to get started. That's for sure.
Okay, well, I have a lot of questions highlighted for you, but one of them I want to talk about specifically something that just happened yesterday, a trending topic in this customer relation department in the industry or the world of. And I don't know if you've heard about it, but basically the makeup brand, Ulta, not brand, but makeup retailer, Ulta, which is a massive makeup retailer, they sent out an email, and I am on this email distribution list, and the subject line says, it's Kate Spade. They're promoting Kate Spade's, I think it was her perfume or something, which she's passed away a few years ago. And the subject line said, hang with Kate Spade. She actually died from suicide of hanging herself. So this has become a major thing in the world, in the news. All sorts of people started emailing back. Of course, they took to Twitter. And then they immediately sent an apology email. So I wanted to ask you, I was excited that you were going to be on the show because, I wanted to ask you what you thought about this in the first place. I mean, how the heck could this email have gotten past all the people it needs to get past to get out? And then, maybe how they handled it, and also, how you would talk a business owner through something like this.
Wow. Well, first of all, the expression no PR or bad PR is better than no PR is probably not true in this particular case.
I agree with you on that.
This was a major mistake. It managed to slip by, but here's what they did right. Within 24 hours, they acknowledged the problem. And we have a 5-step process on when you have a crisis like this. You acknowledge the problem. You apologize to the people for it. You discuss what the resolution is. And obviously, there's nothing you can do other than say, we're sorry, we made a mistake, faux pas. You own it. You act with ownership, and you do it urgently, which is what they did. I want you to think back to 2 major crises that happened in the business world, and you'll remember each one of these. It was probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and you'll still remember that Starbucks in Philadelphia, 2 customers walked in, African Americans, waiting for a friend. One of them had to use the bathroom. You had to ask to get a key to go to the bathroom. And they said, you haven't bought anything. We're not going to let you use our bathroom. And they said, well, we're waiting. And the manager said, you need to leave since you haven't bought anything, but we're waiting. Well, the manager picked up the phone, called the police, and had these people arrested. And on the way out, the friend they were waiting for walked in. Can you imagine? Major crisis.
I did not hear about that. So, I like what you said there, that it was an immediate or within 24 hours, a fairly quick response and owning the mistake, right?
Right.
And then is there any other tip that you would provide for that situation?
That's exactly what happened with Starbucks. Within 24 hours, Howard Schultz was on an airplane on his way to Philadelphia to deal with the problem, apologized, And by the way, they discussed a resolution, which was we're going to do more training on sensitivity and inclusion and that type of thing. And it turned a PR nightmare into a positive experience. Mirror that with the experience that happened with United Airlines, where they physically removed a passenger. And, the jokes started coming out, we don't beat our competition, we beat our passengers, that type of thing. But what happened was the CEO took weeks to respond. And in the meantime, everybody had their chance to, go off in a different direction other than what the company wanted. What happened here with the cosmetic company is they owned it right away. I don't know what the final outcome will be, but they're starting in the right direction.
Besides, maybe someone lost his or her job. Whoever
could have happened,
out.
Or they can turn that into a major learning experience. Let's see what kind of a company they are.
I mean, I've been with several companies that have created e-blasts, and there's at least three sets of eyeballs that go on those typically, even for a small company. Multiple people have to review that, so you do kind of wonder how that could have happened. But anyway, those are really good
tips.
This
was not a typo that could have been caught by a person looking for grammar mistakes. No, this was conceptually wrong.
Right, right. I mean, you had to kind of get the whole grasp ahead of time. So anyway, I appreciate that. And I want to talk about next, something that you have is called the Customer Focus, your customer service training program.
Yes.
And I just love this quote. I was watching some of your videos and I heard you say, "Fine is the F-bomb of customer service."
I love that line.
Love that line. That is
Four-letter word that starts with F.
Exactly, right. Yeah. Fine, because I agree with you on that. I'm that way if I ask my kids how their day is and they just say fine. I kind of think it was bad. I immediately go to the negative side of that, because if it's good, you're going to talk about it. So,
right.
How does that impact businesses, and, what should they be thinking about that in terms of the word fine?
Well, fine is another word for average, satisfactory, just okay. And frankly, I'd rather have somebody have a real complaint and yell at me and scream at me or call and say they're angry, because at least then I can do something about it. Because people, where it falls into the zone of average or fine, they don't complain because it was just okay. And here's what's interesting. The opportunity to do business with another company that's better than okay is where the customer is going to go. So you have a major risk. So I use the word fine as an acronym, F-I-N-E, where F is a fake smile. How is everything? It's fine. Fine is not fine. I is the insincere feedback that smile is all about. N is in the mind. I'm never going to come back if I can help it. And E is it's emotionless. In other words, you didn't create a great experience. I don't care about you. As a matter of fact, I may be smiling up here, but on the inside, you're dead to me. In other words, give me the chance to go somewhere else and I will.
Right. I was just thinking about, I was at a food court recently with my daughters, and it was, a Mexican food place, and the gal was serving my food, and she was so kind, and everybody there was like the guy making the tortillas, and I said, "Thank you for being so nice." And I tipped her extra, and I just said, "You're just so nice. Thank you for making my day." She's like, "Well, isn't everybody supposed to be like this?" And I just said, "They're not. They're definitely
exactly.
not." And it impacted me in such a way that I'm like, we're always going to go back to that place because the food was really good also. And just the way they greeted us. And it was just down to the little things that she was like, "How's your day?" And she had a real genuine smile. And I had an emotional reaction from that experience. And she kind of said, "Well, isn't everybody like that?" I said, "No, they're not."
See, and this is what happened. Whoever hired those people at that particular fast food restaurant hired right. They hired people who had great attitudes. There used to be this company called the Fudgery. I wrote about them in one of my books. And they would, if you ever see the Fudgery, they're in a mall. They make the fudge in front of everybody and they sing and they dance. And when they hire people, one of the first things they do is audition them. And they don't care whether you can sing well or not. Is do you have the outgoing personality to even risk singing in front of a group of people? And if so, well, that's the first hurdle. We know you've got a good attitude and a great outgoing personality. Now, let's look at the rest of it. I think that's so much of what it is hiring the right people with the right attitude. And I love that you said something back to her. I wrote about this a while back. There was a coffee shop and there were two prices on the menu for every item. One price was if you were nice to the people who helped you. And the other price is if you're like a lot of other customers that aren't. And of course, that's the higher price.
That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. Why, actually, you're making me think of another question that was not originally on my list, which is, what are some of the questions you want to ask employees to make sure you do get the right hires? And we do have to take a break, but I want to have you stick around for another segment so I can talk to you about that stuff, yeah?
Happy to do it.
Okay, Shep Hyken here, Chief Amazement Officer. You can find him at Hyken on Twitter, on Facebook at Shep Hyken Speaker, and we'll be right back with more America Trends right after this. You're watching America Trends. I'm Mary Burt-Godwin, joined by Zoom by Shep Hyken. He is a Chief Amazement Officer and an expert in customer service. And Shep, so I always love talking to you, and I think you have really great points. And before we took a break, we were talking about having good hires because they are, especially like frontline workers, well, actually anyone at this point, right? So what are some of the questions that you would suggest to business owners or HR personnel or whoever might be hiring to know, like you said, one company had them do an audition of singing, whether it didn't really matter if they could sing well, it's just having the personality to have the guts to do it, right?
Sure. Yeah. Well, one of the questions that Nordstrom asks their applicants, their candidates, is a real simple question. What's your definition of customer service? There's 1,000 right answers and there's a few wrong answers. And that immediately lets whoever is doing the interview know, okay, this person at least has an idea of what good service is supposed to be. And if they don't have an answer, and by the way, I've used that question when I hire people, what's your definition of good service? And if a person comes in to work for me and they know this is what I do for a living, how can they not be prepared for a question like that? They must know what good customer service is. Hy-Vee, the Midwest grocery chain, has a great program when they're hiring somebody for maybe not necessarily the frontline, lower level jobs, but maybe an assistant manager or a manager. What they do is they have that person come in, they say, would you take 10 minutes before interview, walk around the store. And when we sit down, tell me what you saw, any suggestions you might have, any observations. That's a really cool question. There is gosh, so I wouldn't know because I don't go to places, hair salon.
What's that thing called? Yeah.
Yeah. And they use shears. That's what it is. They're shears to cut your hair. I haven't had, the last time I went to get my hair cut, I freaked out. I was so scared. She cut my ear. I never went back. I just did it all myself from that point forward. No, I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, that's the result, what we're looking at.
Yeah, she did cut my ear. But no, a great question. My friend Mel Kleiman, who's a hiring expert, says every company should have a question that determines whether or not this person is a potentially right person. And in the hair salon industry, it's to a person coming in to work at a hair salon. You want to work here, you want to cut hair. What brand of shears and how much did you pay for those shears? That's the question that they ask. Why? Because there's many varieties of shears. Some are high quality, some aren't. Some are high price, some aren't. And depending upon the kind of hair salon you are, you probably don't want somebody, if the price of shears start at $50 and go up to $500, you probably don't want somebody that has a $50, pair of shears that they're going to use when you're trying to do a higher end thing. So it just gives you an idea.
Yeah.
So I always suggest to my clients to come up with a question that determines whether the interview should even move forward.
Yeah, that's a great, because you don't want to waste anyone's time, right?
Yeah.
So speaking of questions, the next thing I wanted to ask you about was you have some videos and some topics out there on what are the best questions. And you even specifically have one question for business owners to put on their survey, their customer satisfaction survey. Because I know we talked about those, how important those are, whether you do them, via phone or how and when you serve them. You think that they're very important because, that's how you gauge how you're doing. But what is the one question that you would recommend people ask?
I think you're referring to what I call the one thing question.
Yes.
Is that right?
I think so,
okay,
yeah.
So what happens is you want to ask, I first of all believe in keeping surveys very, very short, 2 or 3 questions. And 1 or 2 of those questions should be what we call quantitative. On a scale of 0 to 10, what's the likelihood that you would recommend this? On a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate your service? Whatever it is. Those are very quick to answer, literally seconds. And then I'd follow up with more of a qualitative question, an open-ended question that gives you feedback. And I love the one thing question, especially when customers give us great feedback on that score. Oh, you are wonderful. I gave you a 10. All right. What's the one thing that you could think of that would make the experience even better? And what you're looking to do is get your happy customers to share that one extra idea. And if you hear it from enough customers, you go, oh my gosh, enough people are asking for this. Perhaps we should do it. Every once in a while, you'll get an outlier that actually by themselves has one great suggestion that you can implement. But I refer to that as the one thing question. It's a simple question. And when you get an answer, pay close attention because it's an opportunity to improve on greatness.
Yeah, that is a great question. And for you to have more information moving forward and how you can improve. And then I also want to talk about, if you have customer support, you have a technician that's helping you or somebody that's helping answer your question, you're calling a hotel, and they want to ask how that customer service representative was. I was reading, either you said it or someone on your pages said, would you hire this person?
Right. So that was, I wrote about that. I was very, very impressed. I won't mention the name of the airline, but their initials are AA. Either for Anonymous Airlines or for American Airlines. Okay, we'll go with American. By the way, they have now upped the 1 question to 2 questions, which are fine. And by the way, they have a 3rd question that if you want to answer it. But here was the original question. Based on the experience you just had with this agent, would you want to talk to them again?
Yes, I love that question.
Right. And it's similar, you could say, if depending upon, you can ask it a number of different ways. You could say, based on the experience you had with our sales rep, with our customer support person, would you hire this person to work for your company? So that's just, a simple yes or no, 1 for yes, 2 for no. So that's one of the questions American Airlines asks, would you want this agent again? And the other is the simple on a scale of 1 to 5, or just, no, not even 1 to 5, 1 for yes, 2 for no. Would you recommend us based on this last interaction? And then the 3rd question is, if you have an extra moment at the sound of the tone, would you leave additional feedback? Literally less than a minute for that survey. And now that I have learned that that's how easy it is and short it is, if I get great service from somebody I'm dealing with at American Airlines, which by the way, for me, I love that airline. They take great care of me. So it's most of the time. I love leaving a very nice answer. This was a great agent. She answered all my questions. He was able to take care of this for me. I know that it makes a difference to them, the agent, and hopefully people are listening to it and will go back and compliment that agent on the great job that they did.
Well, Shep, thank you so much for joining us. Ever since I've been having you on the show and talking to you, I've been more apt to answering these customer service requests because I do know how much they help businesses, and if they're short, I don't mind. And I like the voicemail one where you can just talk because I like to talk, but I can answer it a little bit more eloquently versus, one yes or no questions sometimes don't get to the point. So if I want to speak specifically to the person that helped me, Those are really great. So those are really great suggestions. Shep Hyken, thank you so much for joining us. We can tell you're a sports fan. You've got a lot of sports stuff behind you.
Oh, it's huge. And you know what? I'm a St. Louis Blues fan. It's playoff time.
Let's go.
Let's rock and roll.
All right. Well, Shep Hyken,
thanks for having me, Mary.
Chief Amazement Officer. Love having him on the show. Customer service experience expert. And you have watched America Trends. We'll be here again tomorrow night. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, have a good night.